Hello, welcome back to the ministry. We're on part 4, and where I had left off, I was talking about the foundation and waterproofing your foundation. I'm also recording on the podcast. So when it comes down to your foundation, you need to, especially if you have a basement level, you need to waterproof. This is where you will usually see when new properties are being built that excavated area for the basement that's been dug several feet down. It has a waterproof tarp that they have added around the edges. And then they add whatever brick, whatever cement bricks, whatever, you will see that. And I've seen this new thing. I pay attention to these things on these commercials. They got this new stuff that is like a industrial paint that can be painted over. It's like some have a tape, some have an actual paint that when they paint over it, it literally is like waterproof, black, what have you. And you paint it over and no liquid comes through it. It literally becomes instantaneously waterproof. So you'll have something like that. You might find that they will use that as a form of prevention of water damage. What is this spiritually? Spiritually, when you think of water damage, these are the cracks in your armor. These are the cracks, that things that are easily able to flow through areas that liquid can get passed through. So this is that stuff that could easily flow through. Think about your childhood issues, your belief systems. You may allow the melancholy of memories to reopen doors to allot the ability for things that were not supposed to have access to you to be able to get back in. You understand what I'm saying? To be able to open up access points so that you would come back in alignment with those sins as unto iniquities that you like, that have lulled you or tried to lull you back into old patterns and behaviors and mindsets, because it slipped through what? The cracks in the foundation. Because what the enemy will always do is bring a contrary message to what you believe is solid, to either come completely oppositely against it or completely in alignment with it, but ever so slightly off in relation to the sin that easily besets you. We already spoke of this. So you have to waterproof or continually maintain your foundational proofing with the word to keep you in ordinance to what God is trying to maintain within you. I spoke this before. I'm not sure whether I did this in part 3 or 4, but I'll give it to you again. Psalms 27:5 speaks on he will conceal under cover of his tent, and he will set high upon the rock. Your foundation is the rock. And even if you think of it this way, concealing the covering of a tent, this may even be the tarping that's used at the base of your house's foundation. You understand what I'm saying? With that being said, once you've waterproofed, you have to then create your bricks. It's a different type of brick that is used usually in a basement foundation in comparison to the walls externally on a house. Have you noticed that? It's more stonework in the foundation of a building than whether it be cement stone or regular stone. That's the stonework for the wall in a basement area. More than likely because it's not so easy for water to penetrate through. And for the type of foundation that's being built upon it, that kind of stone is a good stone to base the house in. So you will see that, and then you'll see the wooden beams and or pillars. Because once they've cemented the grouting and all of that around your foundational walls of cement or stonework, because that's usually what's between the stones is cement, you'll see that they use beams or pillars of wood. Sometimes you'll see wrought iron on occasion, depending on what kind of structure it is, that they'll use to develop the building's foundational wall, which is usually anywhere from, sometimes that wall is thick enough that you can actually fit a human person behind it so that they can do work and stuff like that. And we've heard some weird stories. Especially those of you that used to read stories and watch movies and watch crime scene shows, you know what I'm talking about. But it's wide enough that it's anywhere from a foot to 2 feet thick. That they'll have the foundational board that'll line the wall. And then they will fill half of it. It'll be about 6 inches. That'll have that pink, kind of looks like cotton candy insulation. This is your insulation phase. This same insulation, you see it on every floor, depending on how many floors your house has. You got that basement floor, first floor, second floor, however many floors your house has. You'll either see the pink or you'll see what? It's like a purple gray in the wall. And sometimes it looks almost like the pink has that purple gray infused in it sometimes. This is your heating insulation. This goes in the wall surrounding all your electrical work. Okay? Can we talk about this? Electrical work. This is what your house is powered by. You usually have a couple of fuse boxes, 1 or 2 in the basement, couple on the first floor, 2 to 3 on the first floor, and then you'll have, matter of factly, I'll do that right now because I can. Hold on. This is The fuse box. You usually see these. Can I open it? Jesus, can I open it? There it is. It's the fuse box. This has all of your fuses that you would need in order to turn on each room in the house. And it has the instructions within that panel. Now, that one, I don't know. I don't think we ever opened that one. Can that be open? I don't know. But that's your fuse box area. I've been talking and you haven't heard anything I said. Let me recap what I just said. The electrical unit for your house, which is your fuse box, that controls multiple different levels. You will have a series of these boxes throughout your house, from your basement, first floor, second floor, third floor. You're going to have it directed towards your electrical is going to be in the wall. And I was simply talking about that the cords that have to run through and back that fuse box, it has to have a level of brackets that holds the cords into place in the wall before and under and around the insulation. Before they even, there's another level of insulation that they do, which is a secondary level where they spray like this white, caulky, like foam like stuff in the wall. And it goes around your electricals. So that's why all your electricals in your house needs to be in place. What is your electricals? This is the thing that keeps your lights on. Without the fuse box, no electricity. You can have a generator, but you got to have an electrical power source initially to run your house off of. What is your spiritual electrical power source? It all goes back to the Lord in one way or another. Because you have to have that either scriptural foundation, principles, understandings, the things that keep the lights on. This is usually your epiphanies, the things that you discern when you get that new level of revelation, puts the lights on for you. So it's your electrical work, those things that keep things running in the house, meaning that foundational prayer points and all that kind of stuff that keeps you submissive to the word. Because when you're staying in the word and you know the word, you can pray through the word. Can't tell you how often I pray through the word. You got to be able to pray through the word. And you have to have that. All of these things are just in the system, in the wall. Before you even, you got your fuse boxes, you got your electrical boxes, you got your electrical, just like that. Your electrical power sockets and cords. See that? Electrical cords. When you have those things, that's the stuff that gives you that basis to work with. You know what I'm saying? So you have that base that all this goes in before your wall goes up. And then you have like your plumbing, your ventilation, All of this is in the wall. Some of it is in the wall, and some of it is like sticking out of the wall in certain places. This is why you see in basements, if just above the fuse box, there's actually a air vent that goes around the bathroom, and you can see it directly on our ceiling, but it's insulated with wall insulation. So a few years back, there was an incident in the apartment complex that caused them to have to rip out all of the walls, use a air ventilator to dry out the walls, I guess all that insulation, and then they had to replace the walls with new wall material and repaint all the walls, which ironically happened immediately after they had just renovated the building. It was like, huh. So you have to have that good, sturdy, all of these things taken care of. This is why you must have your house in order. Some of the stuff that needs to be in order needs to be ordered in the wall first. Now, I did not get a chance to talk about this. I'm going to pause right here and talk about this now. When you are building up your foundation, because all of this is in relation to parts of the foundation, because I'm talking about the basement and the walls. Think about the four corners of your foundation. Some of you have had to build a sturdy foundation. That's why you felt like you haven't been able to really build anything upon what it is that you have, because you have been building out that foundational level below, underneath the house, around the walls that needed to be for the basement area, so on and so forth. You had to do all of that. So this is what you've been building. That's why you haven't seen anything come up yet, because you're underground. Think about bamboo. Bamboo, it's dug down into the ground. Its roots dig deep into the ground. And the actual bamboo shoots up in the 5th year after 4 years of digging deep into the ground. Good root foundation. Some of y'all have been working on the foundation. What am I building? What is it that I need to build? God's showing you and giving you instructions to what it is that you're going to have to build. What areas, what arenas, what industries, corner by corner, direction by direction, all of the foundational principles and understanding of what it is that you had to do, intricately understood. And a lot of you been trying to figure out, well, I know the foundation when we building the thing. God has kept you on that foundational level of working on the cement and the stones, but you ain't built up past the ground level. And you're like, God, when we gonna build some walls on this? When we gonna put the floor in? When we gonna put the beams in to support the floor, and then build the floor on top of that so that we can have that firmness of the foundation over top this basement area? You know what I'm saying? Because they got to put beams in that, and they got to put iron, steel rods to make sure that there are certain foundational elements, and there needs to be pillars all the way into the ground, especially if you got a basement. If you ever notice, basements have 3, 4, maybe even 5 strategically placed pillars, cement pillars to make sure that when the rod irons for the flooring, then the floor is placed and all of that goes right straight up through the house. A lot of you have had pillars. You are developing the pillars. God is going to be sending you into specific industries, which are the pillars that are going to hold your house up. And you've been building the foundation around your pillars that will also be insulated in walling. Some of these pillars are also used and surrounded by electrical ducts work and all of that kind of stuff. Then they have the rod irons for the framework for the development of a house. It is so intriguing and I suggest you do it. I saw somebody build a tiny replica of a manor home. And it showed how they put the rod iron steel in between for every layer of flooring, because there is some rod iron that got to go across ways, and then they have the wood paneling that needs to go in order to support the floor. For like if you have a basement and then you got a first floor, you have to have something that's going to support that, like rod irons, wood, and all of that. The wood, you need to have your wood, but they need some other things in order to hold that wood up so that it'll support people walking over it. You know what I'm saying? Especially if it's a basement underneath of it. And these things have to be fully joisted into the external wall and or ground work along the edges from wall, pillar to post, wall to wall. These rods have to go across there before it can go into the foundation of the flooring for just the first level of the house. You ever seen it? Can you not tell that I like talking about building houses? I didn't realize how much I liked talking about it till I sat down and had this conversation with you guys. Thank you. But you got to do that. And some of you, after that's been built out, then they have to add the main foundation that's going to have the flooring lay on top of. So some of it, you don't just put the rods there. You have to put the rods, and then you have to put what's going to, you got to have your cross beams, and then you have to have whatever it is that they're going to use before they put that flooring in. Meaning it's got to have a foundational piece that the floor can go on top of. In some of these cases, you'll find that they'll coat it with some type of like cement before they put the actual floor on top of that. Now, some people be cheap and they'll put something else in there that's cheaper than the cement or what have you, and it'll make for a weaker floor, which will cause for the weaker floor to settle incorrectly. If you've ever noticed anybody doing flooring and you see the floor underneath of the flooring, meaning underneath your paneled floor, underneath or whatever that is, 9 times out of 10, you recall that flooring is 9 times out of 10 cement, because you have to have some type of cement foundation before they put the flooring in. And that's just for the first floor. But each room, depending on what kind of room it is that's supposed to be on that first floor, will determine and deem what kind of flooring is going to go in that space. The first floor, 9 times out of 10, has the most varying floor design, because your first floor, you got your entry hall, and that has to have a different level of cement, whether it be cement, tiling, so on and so forth. Then you got your front room, which is going to have a completely different type of floor pattern than your um, dining area. Your kitchen's going to have a completely, whether it's a linoleum floor or whether it's like granite or what have you, whatever it is that, depending on cost level of the flooring type that they're going to put in. And sometimes that's a determinant of how you want your house styled. And internally, you have to determine what rooms and how you want your walling set up, especially if you're determining how the walls are set up or you're buying a pre-made floor plan. So that determines how each wall per room is going to be set up at what angle, so on and so forth, so that they can fit what's meant to fit in each room. How big your kitchen is going to be, how small your kitchen is going to be, so on and so forth. How big your dining room, how big your living area space. Is your living area going to have walls? Is it going to be an open concept where there's no walls whatsoever? And if there's no walls, there will be pillars throughout the space. Why? Because there must be foundational pillars to make sure that the house doesn't collapse when the roof is put on it. And what I also noticed is if they do an open concept, it's some type of beaming that is used, but they're like still. I've never known a person, because I used to watch Property Brothers. They will tell you there's got to be some type of foundational pillar along the wall at some point, because they do not want, as other floors are added, especially if it's not a rancher and you're going to have 2 or 3 other floors, you can't have an open concept and not have pillars. You got to have the foundational pillars on your first floor. And then it becomes easier when you got the bedrooms on the 2nd floor or 3rd floor, because all that is structural design. And making sure that, for instance, the wall on the floor below it meets the wall on the floor above it. Have you ever noticed apartment buildings, houses, most of the time, anywhere there is a wall, there is an adjacent wall directly above it, because the wall below it supports the wall above it. Yes? Anybody didn't notice that? So these are all things that must be done in your house, in the creation of the building out of your house. This is all before we get to the level of the pretty part where they get to paint everything and put in like the wood for your staircases, because most staircases are cement, especially the ones that are outside, but they have cement and rod work on it, and then the actual staircase is a shell that is covered with wood or something. Then they take that and they shellac it, they stain it, they put brackets on it, and make it look all nice. Especially, them staircases where they put carpet on it and they put that bracket under each level of the carpeting so that the carpet don't move on the steps. And you see that line that decorative line directly underneath the lid, the lip of the step of each stair. Yeah, that's there for a reason. One, to make sure that the carpet doesn't keep moving. If the steps are carpeted. Uh, but that even has to be placed because you have to have staircases and know where your staircases are going because they have to create the rod irons for the framework for the staircases, and then build that up and out for the direction, angle, and it must be measured appropriately so that the staircase will fit. And if it's a double staircase, I call it a double staircase when the staircase goes up in one direction and then when it gets to the main floor it goes up in another direction. You've all seen those staircases because the stairs are usually, you never see a staircase on one floor going the same way on the next floor. It's usually one staircase going up in one direction and going up in a different direction on the next floor, and then it switches on the following floor so that you can go back and forth. Now, I love these new staircases we're seeing now that are foldable, retractable staircases where it's like they've created a space saving thing that is this like flimsy little staircase that can be folded out and opened up, and then you can walk up it and then fold it back up against the wall and all that kind of stuff. Space saving. And then you use they literally use the side of the staircase as like a hanging place to hang coats and hang all this kind of, it's so cute. Modernization. But all of these things are in relation to your building. I'm gonna come back because I still got to talk about interior design. So we'll be back for the next part.